Vel had been watching Earth for exactly 92 days when he first began to doubt everything he knew about humans. His ship floated silently above the blue planet, hidden behind a cloak that bent light around the vessel like water flowing around a stone. From his observation deck, Vel could see the entire world spinning slowly beneath him. It was beautiful in a way that surprised him. The Korath Collective had not mentioned beauty in their briefing files. They had mentioned many other things. Vel remembered the day he received his mission. He had stood before the High Council in their great chamber of white stone and cold light. The council members looked down at him with their ancient eyes, and the lead speaker had handed him a data crystal containing everything the collective knew about the species called humans. "You will observe them," the lead speaker had said. "You will study their behavior, their technology, their social structures. You will determine if they pose a threat to the collective, and you will not make contact under any circumstances." Vel had accepted the mission without question. He was an observer. It was what he had been trained to do since he was young. He watched. He recorded. He analyzed. He did not interfere. The data crystal had painted a dark picture of humanity. Wars that stretched across centuries. Weapons that could destroy entire cities in a flash of light. Pollution that choked their rivers and darkened their skies. Violence between nations, between groups, between individuals. The files showed humans killing each other over land, over resources, over ideas, over nothing at all. "They are primitive," the files stated, "but dangerous. Their technology advances faster than their wisdom. They cannot be predicted by logic. They act on emotion, on impulse, on irrational beliefs. This makes them unstable. This makes them a threat." Vel had read every word. He had memorized every fact, and when he arrived in Earth's orbit and began his observation, everything he saw seemed to confirm what the collective had told him. He watched their news broadcasts. He saw their wars, their crimes, their endless arguments. He recorded a bombing in one country and a shooting in another. He observed politicians lying to their people and corporations poisoning their water. He documented protests that turned violent and governments that crushed their own citizens. The data piled up in his systems. Day after day, the evidence mounted. Humans were exactly what the collective said they were. Violent. Selfish. Dangerous. Vel began writing his preliminary report with cold certainty, but then he noticed something strange. It started with a small event that his scanners almost missed. A building had collapsed in a city on the western continent. Vel adjusted his sensors to observe the aftermath, expecting to record looting or panic or fighting over resources. Instead, he saw humans running toward the destruction, not away from it. They dug through rubble with their bare hands. They pulled strangers from the wreckage. They carried injured people on their backs to safety. Vel recorded the event and labeled it an anomaly. A few days later, he observed a flood in another region. Water swept through villages and destroyed homes. And again, humans from other areas came to help. They brought food and blankets. They opened their own homes to people they had never met. They waded through dangerous waters to rescue those who were trapped. Another anomaly, Vel told himself, but the anomalies kept appearing. He watched a human give money to a stranger on the street who had nothing. He observed a group of young humans cleaning a beach covered in waste, asking for no reward. He saw a woman run into a burning building to save a child that was not her own. He recorded a man donating blood to people he would never meet, people who might even hate him if they knew his name. These events did not fit the data. They did not match the files. The collective had described humans as selfish creatures driven only by self-interest, but Vel kept seeing them sacrifice their time, their resources, sometimes their lives, for others. He tried to explain it away. Perhaps these were exceptions. Perhaps humans helped each other only to gain social status. Perhaps it was all performance. A show for other humans to see. But late at night, when no one was watching, Vel saw a human sit with a dying animal on the side of a road, stroking its fur and speaking softly until it passed. No one filmed it. No one would ever know. The human simply stayed, because leaving felt wrong. Vel did not know how to categorize this. He began to spend more time watching the small moments. He observed families eating meals together, laughing at jokes he could not understand. He saw friends embrace after long separations, tears running down their faces. He watched an old couple walk slowly along a beach, holding hands as the sun set, saying nothing because they did not need to. The collective had never mentioned any of this. Vel found himself focusing on a small fishing village on a peninsula. It was far from the great cities, and the wars, and the pollution. The people there lived simple lives. They fished in the mornings, and repaired their nets in the afternoons. They gathered in the evenings to share food and stories. An old man named Tay lived there. Vel did not know his name yet, only that he watched the man often. Tay had a weathered face and strong hands. He woke before dawn every day. He helped his neighbors without being asked. When a young fisherman's boat was damaged, Tay spent 3 days helping repair it, refusing any payment. "It is what we do," Tay said to the young man. Vel's translator captured the words, but he was not sure he understood them. Why would someone work for days and ask for nothing in return? The collective's logic could not explain it. Vel's training could not explain it. But he kept watching anyway. He watched Tay's daughter, Hana, return to the village for the summer. She was a scientist who studied the ocean. Vel observed her hugging her father tightly, and he saw the joy on both their faces. He watched them sit together on the porch, drinking tea and talking about everything and nothing. He watched Tay's friend, Wu, bring fish to an elderly widow who could no longer work. He watched the village doctor, Nari, treat patients who could not afford to pay her. He watched these humans live their ordinary lives, and something inside him began to shift. The collective had told him humans were a threat. The data showed violence and war and destruction. But Vel was starting to wonder if the data was incomplete. He had been sent to observe humans and judge them. He had been given files full of their worst moments. But those files said nothing about the way a father smiled at his daughter. They said nothing about neighbors helping neighbors. They said nothing about kindness offered to strangers, about love given freely, about sacrifice without reward. Vel stared at the blue planet below him. He thought about his report, about the conclusions he was supposed to reach. He thought about the collective and their certainty that humans were dangerous. And for the first time in his life as an observer, Vel was not sure what the truth really was. He would have 90 more days to find out. 90 days to watch and record and analyze. 90 days to understand this strange, violent, beautiful, confusing species. But Vel did not know that his time would be cut short. He did not know that in just a few more days, everything would change. He did not know that soon, he would stop being an observer, and he would become something else entirely. The warning came too late. Vel was reviewing his observation logs when the first alarm sounded. It was a sharp, high-pitched tone that he had never heard before in all his years as an observer. He looked up at the display screens and felt something cold spread through his chest. A solar flare, a massive one, and it was heading directly toward his ship. He had perhaps 30 seconds. Vel's hands moved quickly across the control panel. He tried to activate the emergency shields. Nothing happened. He tried to redirect power to the defensive systems. The screens flickered and died. He tried to send a distress signal to the collective. The message went out just as the flare hit. The impact was like nothing Vel had ever experienced. The ship shook so violently that he was thrown from his seat. Sparks exploded from the walls. The lights went dark, then came back in, flashing red. Warning messages scrolled across every screen, too fast to read. The cloak failed. Vel watched the display show his ship becoming visible. A small metal object suddenly appearing in the empty sky above Earth. If anyone on the planet was watching, they would see him now. His secret was exposed, but that was the least of his problems. The engines were failing. The navigation system was dead. The ship was falling. Vel pulled himself back into his seat and strapped in. He tried every emergency protocol he knew. He rerouted power from non-essential systems. He activated the backup thrusters. He did everything his training had taught him to do. It was not enough. The ship entered Earth's atmosphere at the wrong angle. Heat surrounded the vessel. The metal groaned and screamed. Vel watched through the small viewport as fire danced across the hull. He thought about his mission, his home, his people. He thought about all the things he would never do. He thought about the fishing village below, and the old man named Tay, and the simple lives he had been watching from so far away. The ocean rushed up to meet him. The impact was brutal. Vel felt his body slam against the restraints. Something cracked inside his chest. Pain exploded through him, sharp and hot. Water began pouring into the ship through a dozen breaks in the hull. Vel released his restraints and tried to move. His left arm would not respond. He looked down and saw that his exoskeleton was cracked. The hard outer shell that protected his body broken in several places. Dark fluid leaked from the wounds. The water was rising fast. It was cold and it burned his skin. Earth water was not like the water on his world. It was filled with salt and chemicals that stung his flesh. Vel dragged himself toward the emergency hatch. Every movement was agony. The water reached his waist, then his chest. He could feel his breathing apparatus struggling to filter the air, which was now mixed with smoke and the strange gases of this planet. He reached the hatch and pulled the release lever. It opened with a rush of water and sound. The ocean poured in around him, and Vel pushed himself out into the darkness. He did not know how long he swam. Time lost all meaning in the cold and the dark. His body was failing. His systems were shutting down one by one. The translator implant in his head flickered, catching random signals from the planet above. Music, voices, static. Vel kicked toward the surface. His muscles burned. His lungs screamed. He was not built for this world. His body was designed for a different atmosphere, different gravity, different everything. Earth was killing him slowly, and there was nothing he could do. He broke the surface and gasped for air. The air was wrong. Too thick, too wet, too full of things his body could not process. He coughed and choked, and tried to breathe. His gill-like structures, the ones on the sides of his neck that helped him filter oxygen, wheezed and rattled. In the distance, he could see land. Rocky shores. A beach. Behind it, the dark shapes of buildings. The fishing village. He had crashed near the place he had been watching for so long. Vel swam. He did not know how. His arm was broken, and his body was failing. But something inside him refused to give up. Some instinct deeper than his training, older than his logic, pushed him forward. He kicked and pulled and fought against the water until his hands touched rock. He crawled onto the shore like a dying animal. The rocks cut into his damaged skin. The air burned his lungs. He pulled himself forward inch by inch until he was free of the water, lying on his back and staring up at the stars. The stars looked different from down here. Smaller, farther away. Somewhere up there, the collective was receiving his distress signal. Somewhere up there, they were making a decision about what to do. Vel knew what that decision would be. The collective did not rescue compromised observers. It was one of the first rules he had learned. If an observer was discovered, if their cover was blown, they became a risk, and the collective did not tolerate risks. They would send a retrieval team. But not to save him. To eliminate him. To erase all evidence that he had ever existed. And if there were witnesses, humans who had seen him or helped him, they would be eliminated too. Vel closed his eyes. He was dying. He could feel it in every part of his body. The cold was spreading through him, and his thoughts were becoming slow and confused. He thought about his home, a planet he would never see again. He thought about his family, who would be told he died honorably in service to the collective. They would never know the truth. He thought about the humans he had been watching. The wars and the violence. Yes, but also the kindness. The sacrifices. The love. He wondered which version of humanity he would meet at the end. The sun began to rise. Pink and orange light spread across the sky, reflecting off the water. It was beautiful. Vel had seen many sunrises from his observation deck, but none of them looked like this. None of them felt like this. He heard footsteps on the rocks. Voices. Human voices. His translator caught fragments of their words. What is that? Is it alive? Be careful. We don't know what it is. Vel tried to move, tried to speak, but his body would not obey. He could only lie there as the footsteps came closer. He could only wait as the humans approached. A face appeared above him, old and weathered, with deep lines around the eyes. Gray hair blowing in the morning wind. Strong hands that reached down toward him without fear. It was Tay, the man Vel had watched for so long. The man who helped his neighbors and asked for nothing in return. The man who sat with his daughter on the porch and drank tea as the sun went down. Vel's translator finally processed the look on Tay's face. Not fear, not anger, not disgust at the strange creature bleeding on his shore. Concern, worry, care. It's alive, Tay said to someone Vel could not see. We need to help it. Help it? Another voice, younger. We don't even know what it is. We should call someone. The government. The military. And let them take it away to some laboratory? Look at it. It's dying. Vel felt hands touch his body. Gentle hands. Careful hands. The same hands that had repaired fishing boats and carried injured neighbors. We take it to my house, Tay said. His voice was firm. We help it. That is what we do. Vel wanted to speak. He wanted to warn them. He wanted to tell them about the collective, about the retrieval team that would come, about the danger they were putting themselves in by helping him. But his voice would not work. His eyes would not stay open. The darkness was pulling him down. The last thing he felt before unconsciousness took him was being lifted from the cold rocks. The last thing he heard was Tay's voice, speaking softly. You're going to be okay. Whatever you are, wherever you came from, you're going to be okay. We've got you now. And then Vel fell into darkness, carried in the arms of the species he had been sent to judge. Tay had seen many strange things in his 63 years of life, but nothing like the creature now lying on his kitchen table. The thing was humanoid, but clearly not human. Its skin was a pale blue-gray color, smooth in some places and covered with small scales in others. It had 2 arms and 2 legs, but the hands had only 4 fingers each, long and thin. Its face was almost human, with 2 eyes and a mouth, but the eyes were larger and darker, and there were strange slits on the sides of its neck that moved slightly with each labored breath. The creature was dying. Even Tay, who had spent 25 years as a paramedic before retiring to the village, could see that. Its breathing was shallow and wet. Dark fluid that might have been blood leaked from cracks in the hard shell covering parts of its body. Its skin was cold to the touch, much colder than it should be. What do we do? Hana asked. She stood on the other side of the table, staring at the creature with wide eyes. She had come running when Wu arrived at the house, shouting about something on the beach. She had helped carry the creature here, her hands now stained with its strange dark blood. I don't know, Tay admitted. He had treated hundreds of patients in his career. He had saved lives in accidents, fires, disasters, but he had never treated anything like this. He did not even know where to begin. Wu stood by the door, his fishing boots still wet from the morning tide. We should call someone, he said. But his voice was uncertain. The authorities. Someone who knows about this. And what will they do? Tay asked. Put it in a cage? Cut it open to see how it works? This is a living being, Wu. Look at it. It's afraid. It's in pain. As if to prove his point, the creature's eyes flickered open for just a moment. Those large, dark eyes looked up at Tay, and in that brief instant, Tay saw something he recognized. It was the same look he had seen in the eyes of car crash victims, of drowning swimmers, of people who knew they were dying and were terrified. The creature's eyes closed again, and its breathing grew even more ragged. We need Nari, Hana said suddenly. She might know something. Nari was the village doctor. She had moved here 5 years ago from the city, looking for a quieter life. She was young and smart and curious about everything. If anyone could figure out how to help this creature, it would be her. Go, Tay said to Wu. Bring her here. Tell her it's urgent. Tell her. He paused, looking down at the creature. Tell her I need her help to save a life. Wu left without another word. Tay turned his attention back to the creature. Its gill-like structures were making a terrible sound, a wet rattling that reminded him of patients with severe lung problems. It was drowning, he realized. Not in water, but in air. Earth's air was wrong for it somehow. Hana, he said, what do you know about gills? About how fish breathe? Hana's eyes lit up with understanding. Gills need moisture. They extract oxygen from water. If this creature has gills, our dry air might be like us trying to breathe underwater. Oh, so we need to make the air wetter. Not just wetter, richer in oxygen. And we need to keep those structures moist. They worked quickly. Hana ran to get the humidifier from her bedroom. Tay gathered plastic sheeting from his workshop. Together, they built a makeshift tent over the creature's head and upper body. Hana adjusted the humidifier to its highest setting and placed it inside the tent. Within minutes, the creature's breathing began to ease. The terrible rattling sound faded. Its chest rose and fell more smoothly. It's working, Hana whispered. There were tears in her eyes. It's actually working. Nari arrived 20 minutes later, breathless from running. She stopped in the doorway and stared at the creature on the table. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she straightened her shoulders, set down her medical bag, and walked forward. Tell me everything, she said. Tay told her. The crash in the ocean at dawn. Finding the creature on the rocks. Its injuries. Its strange blood. Its struggling gills. The humidifier tent that seemed to be helping it breathe. Nari listened carefully. She examined the creature without touching it at first. Just looking. Then she gently felt along its body, checking for injuries. The shell is cracked here, she said, pointing to the creature's left side. And here. I think it's some kind of natural armor. But it's broken. These wounds need to be cleaned and closed. Can you do it? Tay asked. Nari was quiet for a moment. I've never treated anything like this. I don't know its biology, its chemistry, its anything. If I do something wrong, I could kill it. If we do nothing, Hana said quietly, it will die anyway. Nari looked at the creature. It had opened its eyes again and was watching her. Those dark eyes were filled with pain, but also with something else. Trust. This creature, whatever it was, wherever it came from, was trusting them with its life. Okay, Nari said. Let's do this. What followed was the strangest medical procedure any of them had ever been part of. Nari cleaned the wounds with saline solution, watching carefully for any bad reaction. The creature flinched but did not pull away. She stitched the deepest cuts with careful, precise movements, using techniques she had learned in medical school, but never imagined using on an alien being. Tay assisted, handing her instruments and keeping the creature calm. He talked to it the whole time, even though he did not know if it could understand him. He talked about the village, about the ocean, about his daughter, and his life. He talked because he remembered that when he was a paramedic, patients always did better when someone talked to them, when they felt less alone. Hana monitored the humidifier and watched the creature's breathing. She adjusted the oxygen levels, experimenting carefully until she found a mixture that seemed to work best. She made notes on everything, her scientific mind already trying to understand this new form of life. Wu brought food and water for the humans. He stood guard by the door, watching for anyone who might come looking. He was not a medical man, but he understood that what they were doing was important. He understood that sometimes the right thing to do was the hardest thing. The hours passed. Day turned to evening. The creature drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes watching them with those strange dark eyes, sometimes lost in some kind of fevered sleep. Its vital signs, as far as they could measure them, slowly stabilized. By midnight, Nari finally stepped back from the table. Her hands were trembling with exhaustion. I've done everything I can, she said. The rest is up to it. They took turns watching over the creature through the night. Tay took the first shift, sitting beside the table in an old wooden chair. He watched the creature breathe, watched its eyes move behind closed lids, watched its four-fingered hands twitch occasionally as if dreaming. "I don't know if you can hear me," Tay said softly. "I don't know if you understand. But you're safe here. Whatever happened to you, whatever brought you to our planet, you're safe now. We're going to take care of you." The creature did not respond, but Tay thought he saw its breathing slow slightly, as if it was relaxing. As if, even in unconsciousness, it knew it was not alone. 3 days passed. 3 days of watching and waiting and hoping. 3 days of changing bandages and adjusting the humidifier and talking to a creature that could not respond. On the 4th morning, Tay was sitting by the table when the creature's eyes opened. Not the brief, fevered glimpses of before, but really opened. Clear and aware, the creature looked at Tay for a long moment. Then it opened its mouth, and in a voice like wind through dry leaves, it spoke, "Thank you." Tay felt tears spring to his eyes. He reached out and gently took the creature's hand. Its skin was cool and smooth, but the grip was surprisingly strong. "You're welcome," he said. "My name is Tay. What's yours?" The creature paused, as if searching for the right word. "Vel," it finally said. "My name is Vel." "Welcome to Earth, Vel," Tay said, smiling through his tears. "Are you hungry?" And despite everything, despite the pain and the fear and the strangeness of it all, Vel found himself making a sound that might have been a laugh. "Yes," he said. "I think I am." Vel had been prepared for many things when he regained consciousness. He had been prepared for interrogation. He had been prepared for chains and cages. He had been prepared for experiments, for pain, for cold scientific curiosity that treated him as a specimen rather than a person. He had not been prepared for soup. "It's fish broth," Hana explained, holding a small bowl toward him. "We didn't know what you could eat, so we started simple. Just broth. Nothing solid yet." Vel looked at the bowl. Steam rose from it, carrying a smell that was strange but not unpleasant. His translator had fully rebooted now, and he could understand every word the humans spoke, but understanding the words did not mean understanding the actions. "Why?" he asked. Hana tilted her head. "Why what? Why are you feeding me? Why did you save me? Why are you helping?" It was the question that had burned in his mind since he first woke up. The collective's files had been clear about human behavior. Humans helped themselves. They helped their own kind, when it benefited them. They did not help strangers, and they certainly did not help creatures from other worlds. Yet here he was, alive, because 4 humans had chosen to save him. Hana set the bowl down beside him. "You were hurt," she said simply. "You needed help. That's enough of a reason, isn't it?" Vel did not know how to respond. In his world, there was always a reason. Everything was calculated, measured, weighed against cost and benefit. No one did anything without expecting something in return. "Drink the soup," Hana said with a small smile. "My father made it. He's actually a pretty good cook. Even if he won't admit it, the soup was warm and salty." Vel's body, which had been running on nothing for days, responded immediately. He felt strength returning with each sip. He drank slowly, savoring the warmth, marveling at the simple kindness of the act. Over the following weeks, Vel experienced more kindness than he had ever thought possible. Tay gave up his own bedroom so Vel could have a comfortable place to recover. The old man slept on the couch without complaint, insisting that guests should have the best room. When Vel protested, Tay just laughed and said, "You came a long way. The least I can do is give you a decent bed." Wu brought fresh fish every morning. He would arrive at dawn, before anyone else was awake, and leave his catch by the door. When Vel finally thanked him in person, Wu just shrugged and said, "Fish is good for healing, everyone knows that." He never asked for payment. He never asked for anything at all. Nari came every day to check on Vel's wounds. She brought medical journals and spent hours researching, trying to understand his biology so she could help him better. One evening, Vel found her asleep at the kitchen table, surrounded by papers and books, still trying to find answers. He covered her with a blanket and let her sleep. And Hana became his teacher. She taught him about Earth, about the oceans and the land and the creatures that lived in both. She taught him about human history, the good and the bad, hiding nothing. She told him about wars, yes, but also about the people who had fought for peace. She told him about cruelty, but also about the movements that had risen against it. "We're not perfect," she said one afternoon as they sat on the porch, watching the sun set over the water. "We've done terrible things. We continue to do terrible things. But we also try to be better. That's what makes us human, I think. Not that we're good, but that we keep trying to be." Vel thought about this for a long time. The collective had shown him humanity's worst moments and used them to define the entire species. But they had ignored everything else. They had ignored the trying. As his body healed, Vel began to help around the village. He started small, fixing broken equipment with techniques far beyond human technology. Word spread quickly that Tay's strange guest could repair things that no one else could fix. The villagers were afraid of him at first. They stared and whispered and kept their distance, but Vel did not blame them. He understood fear. What he did not understand was how quickly the fear faded. An old woman named Soon brought him a broken radio that had belonged to her husband. It was ancient by human standards, held together by tape and hope. Vel fixed it in minutes, and when music played from its speakers for the first time in years, Soon burst into tears. "My husband loved this radio," she said, clutching Vel's four-fingered hand. "Thank you. Thank you so much." A young fisherman named Jin asked Vel to look at his boat's engine, which had been failing for months. Vel not only fixed it but improved it, making it faster and more fuel-efficient. Jin tried to pay him, but Vel refused. "Your people saved my life," Vel said. "I can never repay that. But I can try." The village began to accept him. Children who had hidden behind their parents now ran up to him. Curious and unafraid, they asked him questions about space, about his home world, about what it was like to fly among the stars. Vel answered as best he could, and he found that he enjoyed their wonder. He taught Hana things too. He told her about creatures that lived in the deepest parts of the ocean, species her instruments had never detected. He explained the mathematics of star navigation. He shared knowledge that humans might not discover for centuries. And he watched her eyes light up with each new revelation. "This is amazing," she said one night, after he had described a form of clean energy his people had developed. "If we could use this, we could stop burning fossil fuels. We could clean our oceans. We could... Our oceans." "I know," Vel said. "That is why I am telling you." She stared at him. "But your mission, your people, won't you get in trouble for sharing this?" Vel looked out at the ocean, dark under the stars. "I was sent to judge your species," he said quietly. "To decide if you were a threat. I watched from above and saw only violence. But I was wrong. The violence is real. But it is not all you are. You are also this: kindness, hope, the desire to be better. My people, they would never understand this. They see emotion as weakness. They see compassion as a flaw." He turned to look at her. "I am not sure I want to go back to people who think like that." Hana was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and took his hand. "Then don't," she said. "Stay with us. You're part of the village now. You're part of our family. Our family." It was a concept Vel understood intellectually, but had never truly felt. The collective did not have families in the human sense. They had units. Groups assembled for efficiency and purpose, but sitting here, on this small porch, in this simple village, with this woman who had become his friend, Vel finally understood what family meant. That night, he sat with Tay on the porch after everyone else had gone to bed. They did not speak for a long time. They just sat together, watching the stars and listening to the waves. "I have to tell you something," Vel finally said. Tay nodded. I figured you would, eventually. My people will come for me. When they find out I survived, they will send someone. And those people will not be kind like you. They will see you as witnesses, as threats. Tay was quiet for a moment. Then he turned to look at Vel, and his face was calm. Then we'll deal with that when it comes, he said. You don't understand. They could kill you, all of you, just for helping me. I understand perfectly, Tay said. We knew there might be risks when we pulled you from those rocks. We helped you anyway. That's not going to change now. But why? Vel asked. It was the same question he had asked Hana weeks ago. The same question he still did not fully understand. Tay smiled. It was a sad smile, but also warm. Because that's what we do, he said. That's who we are. Maybe not all of us, all the time, but enough of us, enough of the time. We help, we protect, we love, even when it costs us. Especially when it costs us. He put a hand on Vel's shoulder. You're one of us now, Vel. Whatever comes, we face it together. Vel felt something he had never felt before. A warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with temperature. A sense of belonging that had nothing to do with duty. For the first time in his life, Vel understood what it meant to have a home, and he knew he would do anything to protect it. The signal came on a cold autumn morning, when the leaves had turned gold and the air smelled of salt and change. Vel was helping Wu repair fishing nets when he felt it. A pulse of communication that bypassed his ears entirely and spoke directly to the translator implant in his brain. It was a frequency only collective technology could produce. And the message was simple. Retrieval unit dispatched. Arrival in 48 hours. Prepare for extraction. Eliminate all witnesses. Vel's hand stopped moving. The net fell from his fingers. Wu looked up, concern on his weathered face. What's wrong? Wu asked. For a moment, Vel could not speak. He had known this day would come. He had warned Tay about it weeks ago. But knowing something would happen and feeling it happen were very different things. They're coming, Vel said. His voice sounded strange to his own ears. My people. They'll be here in 2 days. Wu's face went pale, but his eyes remained steady. Then we have 2 days to get ready. The village gathered that evening in Tay's home. It was crowded, with people standing in doorways and leaning against walls. Everyone who had come to know Vel over the past months was there. The old woman Soon with her repaired radio, the young fisherman Jin with his improved boat, children who had asked about the stars, neighbors who had shared meals and stories and laughter. Vel stood before them and told them the truth. The collective does not forgive failure, he said. They do not forgive compromise. I was supposed to observe you, to judge you, and to remain hidden. I failed at all of these things. Now they are sending soldiers to fix the problem. What does fix the problem mean? Nari asked. Her voice was calm, but Vel could see fear in her eyes. They will eliminate me, and anyone who knows about me, anyone who has seen me, anyone who might tell others what they have seen. The room was silent. Vel watched faces change as the meaning sank in. Fear, anger, despair, and then, something he did not expect. Then we fight, said Jin, the young fisherman. He stepped forward, his jaw set. We're not just going to let them take you. We're not going to let them hurt our village. You don't understand, Vel said. These are trained soldiers with technology far beyond anything you have. They have weapons that can... We understand, Tay said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. The old man sat in his chair by the window, his face lit by the last light of sunset. We understand that they're stronger than us. Better armed. Better trained. We understand that fighting them might get us all killed. He stood slowly, his old bones creaking. But we also understand that some things are worth fighting for. You came to us broken and dying. You could have been a monster. You could have been a threat, but you weren't. You were just someone who needed help, and we helped you. He walked forward until he stood directly in front of Vel. His eyes were bright with something that might have been tears. You're family now, Tay said. And we don't abandon family, not ever. The room erupted in agreement. Voices called out, offering weapons, offering boats, offering whatever they had. These simple fishing people, who had never fought anything worse than a storm, were willing to stand against soldiers from the stars. Because of him. Because they had chosen to make him one of their own. Vel felt that warmth in his chest again. That strange human feeling that had no name in his language, but meant everything. "Okay," he said, and his voice was stronger now. "If we're going to fight, we need a plan." The next 2 days were a blur of activity. Vel shared everything he knew about collective tactics. Their soldiers were efficient but predictable. They expected compliance. They expected fear. They did not expect resistance, especially not from a species they considered primitive. Hana and Vel worked together to create simple devices that could disrupt collective communications. Wu and the fishermen prepared the coastline, identifying places where boats could be hidden and traps could be set. Nari gathered medical supplies and set up a treatment area in the village hall. Tay coordinated everything. His years of emergency response experience proving invaluable. They did not sleep. They barely ate. They worked until their hands ached and their eyes burned, knowing that everything depended on being ready. The retrieval unit arrived in the dead of night, just as Vel had predicted. 3 soldiers in dark armor, moving silently through the water toward the shore. Their ship hovered offshore, cloaked and invisible to human eyes but not to Vel, who knew what to look for. Vel activated the communication jammer. Suddenly, the soldiers could not contact their ship. They could not contact each other. They were alone in the dark, in unfamiliar territory, facing an enemy they had expected to be helpless. Wu's traps caught the first soldier. Fishing nets weighted with stones, hidden beneath the sand. The soldier went down hard, tangled, and confused. Jin and 3 other fishermen were on him in seconds, using ropes and clubs to subdue him before he could free himself. The second soldier made it further inland before Hana's device caught him. A bright flash of light and a burst of electromagnetic energy that overloaded his armor's systems. He stumbled, blind and deaf. And Tay was waiting with a boat hook that swept his legs out from under him. The third soldier was the commander. She was faster than the others, smarter, more cautious. She found Vel in the village square, standing alone under the cold stars. "Traitor," she said. Her voice was flat through her helmet speaker. "You have betrayed the collective. You have betrayed your people." "No," Vel said. "I have betrayed a lie. The collective told me humans were dangerous. They were right. But not in the way they meant. Humans are dangerous because they love. Because they protect. Because they refuse to give up. Even when they have no chance of winning. They are primitive animals," the commander said. "They mean nothing. They mean everything," Vel replied. "They saved my life when they had every reason to let me die. They protected me when they knew the cost. They taught me what the collective never could. That compassion is not weakness, that kindness is not foolish, that the value of a life cannot be measured by logic alone." The commander raised her weapon. "Pretty words. They will not save you." "Perhaps not," Vel said. "But they will remember me. And they will tell others. And one day, your collective will face a galaxy that knows what humans truly are. Not monsters. Not threats. But the species that welcomed a dying stranger and called him family." A sound came from behind the commander. She spun, weapon ready. But it was too late. Nari hit her with a medical sedative strong enough to drop an elephant. The commander swayed, fought to stay upright, and finally collapsed. It was over. The village gathered in the gray light of dawn. The 3 soldiers lay bound and unconscious in the village hall. Their ship still hovered offshore, waiting for a signal that would never come. "What do we do with them?" Wu asked. Vel looked at the unconscious soldiers. His former people. They had come to kill him. To kill everyone he cared about. By collective law, he had every right to eliminate them, but he was not collective anymore. "We treat their wounds," Vel said. "We give them food and water, and then we let them go." Tay raised an eyebrow. Let them go? After they tried to kill us? They will report back to the collective, Vel said. They will tell them what they found here. Not easy prey. Not frightened animals. But a people who stood together against overwhelming odds. Maybe that won't change anything. Maybe the collective will send more soldiers, more ships, more weapons. But maybe, just maybe, some of them will begin to question. 10, 6, 10, 10. He looked at his human family, these people who had given him everything. That is what you taught me. You don't defeat darkness by becoming darkness. You defeat it by being light. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. When the soldiers finally woke, confused and disarmed, Vel gave them a message to take back to the collective. He spoke it clearly, knowing it would be recorded, knowing it would be heard by the High Council itself. You sent me to observe humans and determine if they were a threat. I watched them from the stars and saw only violence. Then I fell among them and saw everything you never wanted me to see. They found a stranger, an enemy, and chose to save him. They asked for nothing. They gave everything. He paused, looking at Tay and Hana, at Wu and Nari, at all the villagers who had become his family. You fear them because they cannot be predicted by logic. I understand now why. Humans do not act from logic alone. They act from something stronger. They call it love, and it is the most powerful force I have ever witnessed. He took a breath. I was sent to observe. Instead, I lived. Because of them, the soldiers left. The ship departed. The village stood on the shore and watched, until there was nothing left to see. Tay put a hand on Vel's shoulder. What happens now? He asked. Vel looked at the sunrise, at the golden light spreading across the water, at the small village that had become his home. Now, he said, I live. With you. As one of you. For as long as you'll have me. Tay smiled, and there were tears on his weathered cheeks. Then you'll be here a long time, he said. Because you're family. And family is forever. Vel looked at the humans around him. These strange, illogical, beautiful creatures, who had taught him more about life than all his years of observation. He finally understood what the collective could never calculate, what their files and data could never capture. Home was not a planet. Home was not a place. Home was the people who refused to let you die alone. And Vel was home at last.